is Starry Ari's ASMR. I am Ari, and today I would like to do a little book haul of some new books that my husband and I picked up. I have 4 books to show you today, and this is a mix of used books and new. I think that we got 2 used and 2 new. And some of these I think I'm more interested in reading, and some of them I think are more for my husband. So let's go ahead and get into it. I think I want to show you the books, talk a little bit about it. I haven't read any of these, but I think that I can at least give a little bit of a breakdown. We can look at the covers and maybe do a little bit of tracing. So the first book that I have today is by Carl Sagan, and this is The Demon Haunted World. Now, my husband is a physicist, and he has always really respected Carl Sagan as a science communicator, and we both love his fiction book, Contact. It's just like a phenomenal book, and just really, really interesting sci-fi. And I could understand some people not liking it, but we both really enjoy it. And this book in particular I wanted to pick up, so this book is for me. And The Demon Haunted World is, at least as I understand it, kind of a look at religious and faith beliefs and the role that those play in kind of like our everyday workings and kind of how that interacts with science. So down here it says science as a candle in the dark. And I think that this particular book seemed interesting because it is not a fiction. And knowing that I like Carl Sagan's writing style, and I've never really been like too much into his science education, but knowing that he is was a great educator, just knowing from my husband, I really wanted to pick this up. And let's take a look at the back and see if it has a description, and it does. How can we make intelligent decisions about our increasingly technology-driven lives if we don't understand the difference between the myths of pseudoscience, New Age thinking, and fundamentalist zealotry, and the testable hypotheses of science? Casting a wide net through history and culture, Sagan examines and authoritatively debunks such celebrated fallacies as witchcraft, faith healings, demons, and UFOs. And yet, disturbingly, in today's so-called information age, pseudoscience is burgeoning with stories of alien abduction, channeling past lives, and communal hallucinations commanding growing attention and respect. As Sagan demonstrates with a lucid eloquence, the siren song of unreason is not just a cultural wrong turn, but a dangerous plunge into darkness that threatens our most basic freedoms. So this book, I think, surely it will not be for everyone. And I honestly don't even know if this book will necessarily be for me. And I want to see when this was published. Okay, so it does have a date of 1997, I imagine was the original publishing date. And I think a lot has happened since then. And I think that this book, it was highly, highly recommended to me by my husband's grandfather. And he really, really enjoys Carl Sagan's writings and loves science, and really got kind of, not really my husband involved in science, but had really deep conversations with him even as a young child about physics and the universe and the way that things worked. And we were chatting, and this came up as one of his favorite books of all time. And I've not read it before, so I picked it up when we saw it, and I thought that I should give it a shot. And I am usually of the mind that whatever people's beliefs, as long as they serve them positively and do not harm others, I think that we should be accepting of other beliefs. So I'm interested on the stance in this book, and I'm wondering whether I will get more of a look at Carl Sagan's direct beliefs and thoughts on religion and faith and myths and all of that stuff. So I'm very interested in this, and I think it's good to read books that might be challenging and maybe not directly in line with our beliefs, and I think that this one might be an interesting read for me, especially with kind of where I'm at with the world right now. I think that this book is kind of meant to be a statement on the importance of unbiased research and making sure that, we're looking at science as something that progresses and isn't necessarily set in stone, because that's not the scientific process. So I think that that's kind of maybe some of the themes in here. So I am interested in this one, and I have quite a few books on my to be read list, so I don't know exactly when I'll get into this one, but I've been kind of alternating, like reading a bit of a heavier hitter and then reading something lighter, usually like a Stephen King book, which are all quite dark, but it's like not as existential. So this was the first book that we picked up. I think that my husband is also interested in this and will honestly probably read it before I do, but overall I'm excited to have this in our collection and give it a chance. The next book that I have is a classic, and this is Margaret Atwood, her Handmaid's Tale, or The Handmaid's Tale. And I think a lot of people now would recognize this from the series, the show. And I have actually seen the show, but before that I had a client recommend this book to me years and years ago, kind of a funny way. It was like we were just talking about books that we were reading at the moment, and she mentioned this one as something that was like she'd read it a bunch of times, and it was almost like a comfort read for her, and I was like, that's really interesting. I would not think about that for The Handmaid's Tale, but she didn't necessarily mean that it was a comforting story, but she had just read the book so many times that she knew kind of exactly what to expect. And this book, I love the cover. The cover is very, it's like smooth, but there's like a tiny, tiny bit of texture. And it just fits so perfectly with this mainly black background. And the handmaid here on the cover with the hood and the handmaid robe and dress. So I have not read this before, and I have been meaning to pick it up, and this was one of the ones that I actually purchased new because I had been looking for so long. Every time I go into a thrift store or our used bookstore, I've been like scoping all of them for this, and I have not found a copy. And so I was like, you know what, whatever, I'm just gonna purchase it new. So that's what I did. So this is a brand new book, which is very lovely. The spine is like perfectly intact. And let's take a look at the back. So this one says, in Margaret Atwood's dystopian future, environmental disasters and declining birth rates have led to a second American Civil War. The result is the rise of the Republic of Gilead, a totalitarian regime that enforces rigid social roles and enslaves the few remaining fertile women. Offred is one of these, a handmaid bound to produce children for one of Gilead's commanders. Deprived of her husband, her child, her freedom, and even her own name, Offred clings to her memories and her will to survive. At once a scathing satire, an ominous warning, and a tour de force of narrative suspense, The Handmaid's Tale is a modern classic. So, I imagine that lots and lots of people have heard of this book. I know that it is a classic, but I've just never read it. And I do want to read this and pick up The Testaments, which is the sequel of The Handmaid's Tale. But this is one of those that I was looking for so long, but I was also kind of secretly okay that I hadn't found it yet, because I don't know that I was in the mindset to really want to read it and to face or confront the themes that are in the book. And this is, again, I think one of those situations where I think that this is going to be a difficult read for me, but I think that it will be an important one. So I think that I might have this be on my to-be-read list, but I'm going to be pretty strict. Sometimes I'll have books on my TBR that I move down further as other more interesting books come up. I think I'm going to force myself not to do that with this one, because I think if I do that, I'm never going to read it. And I would really like to read it. So this one, I don't think my husband will read. He did watch the show with me, and I think that he's generally not too into fiction. I think that the next book that I'll show you is one of his first fiction reads in a while, but he's he's reading 1984 right now, which I've read before and he hasn't, which was kind of surprising. But so that one I guess is fiction, but he's usually more into like nonfiction, and so I don't think this is really in his wheelhouse, but I am glad to have it. I think it is a good classic that I want to read so that I can kind of understand it better and be able to talk about it from a literary perspective. So this was The Handmaid's Tale. And the next book that I have is kind of a hefty one. And this is Dune. And my husband has actually, I think, listened to this on audiobook. I don't remember if he finished it, but this one is for my husband. This one is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, so I don't know if I'll ever read this, but it's again one of those classics, and I think a lot of people now know it from the movies with Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya and lots of other great actors. But this one we got from Barnes and Noble, and they had this one on sale for buy one get one half off, and I think one of our other books, I don't remember actually, maybe The Handmaid's Tale was also half off, but it just didn't have the sticker. I don't recall. I don't think we would have gotten both if they weren't both on sale. So this one is a very thick book, as you can see, and I do love the cover. I think the cover is just really beautifully designed with all of the sand dunes here and these lovely like bright oranges and yellows and reds, and it's a very stark contrast with the Dune letters. And this series is by Frank Herbert. Let's see if it has a description on the back for you. Set on the desert planet Arrakis, Dune is the story of the boy Paul Atreides, who would become known as the Muad'Dib and one of a great family's ambition to bring to fruition humankind's most ancient and unattainable dream. A stunning blend of adventure and mysticism, environmentalism and politics, Dune won the first Nebula Award, shared the Hugo Award, and formed the basis of what is undoubtedly the grandest epic in science fiction. So I think that I'm probably quite disappointing in the fact that I most likely won't read this. I think that, I know it's a sci-fi classic, but it's not quite for me, I don't think. And maybe one day if we somehow magically have run out of books for me to read and we have this on the shelf and I decide to pick it up, maybe I would be fine with that. Maybe it would be good. I have really enjoyed the movies, and I feel like traditionally books are better than the movies or the screen adaptations. So if that says anything, I feel like that should tell me that I would enjoy the books, but it's also so long. It's like such a commitment to make, and I have so many other books that are in my wheelhouse that I feel like I just kind of want to focus on those a bit more. But I know lots of people that have read this, and like my brother-in-law's read it and really enjoys the whole series, and he's like really into reading as well, and it's been kind of fun to get back into it. But I think that this one is much more for my husband than for me. It's a very beautiful cover, though. And the last book that I have here is called Co-Intelligence: Living and Working with AI. And this book was written by Ethan Mollick. And this book I have not read, but my husband just finished it, and I think would really like for me to read it as well. He kind of talked about it with me as he was reading it, so I generally know a lot of the themes, but this is a non-fiction book about, surprise, surprise, living and working with AI. And I think that we all have experienced a growing presence of AI in like all aspects of our lives. We certainly have, and I think that my husband and myself, and we are not like super into AI. Like, we have some people in our lives that ask ChatGPT like literally everything, and it like kind of drives me insane. But it's like one of those things that I think that we, I've used AI in some instances, and I think that it's important, especially, my husband teaches, and his perspective over the last few years has kind of shifted and changed, and this book was really, I think, helpful for him to like direct some of those thoughts and feelings, and especially at least not necessarily have a hopeful outlook for the future of humanity and AI, but at least kind of direct those thoughts and feelings into like his own application of it and ways that he can work with it and use it and understand it a little bit better for his students. So I think that this was really interesting for him to read. Let's take a look at the back. So these are all just praise quotes for the book. Let's see the inside cover. Okay, so it says, from Wharton professor, AI expert, and author of the One Useful Thing newsletter, a clear-eyed, pragmatic, and revelatory vision of our new age of generative AI. So I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but after a few hours of using generative AI systems, it dawns on you that you are interacting with something new, something alien, and that things are about to change. The nature of this alien intelligence and how it will change the way you work, learn, and live is the story he tells in Co-Intelligence. So this author, I think he has a picture and a description here, yeah. So it says, Ethan Mollick is a professor of management at Wharton, specializing in entrepreneurship and innovation. His research has been featured in various publications, including Forbes, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. He's the creator of numerous educational games on a variety of topics. He lives and teaches in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So this book is probably one of my next reads, because I think I myself have been struggling with the idea of what our future is going to look like with AI, and I think that this book might me a little bit more direction, because I know it certainly did for my husband. And I think it'd be interesting to have a little bit more of a language behind my thoughts and feelings on it. And, coming from a community health, public health background, I think that there have been some amazing applications of artificial intelligence, certainly even before these new models have come out. Even just like public health modeling and, community mapping. Like, there have been some really amazing applications of it. And so I am not somebody that's like doom and gloom about it, but I'm also not like on board asking ChatGPT. Like, I don't know. I can't think of any silly examples. And I love this cover. I think that this is such a clever imagery to have on this book about artificial intelligence. And it is a hand picking an apple, which is very, very symbolic of Adam and Eve and the origin stories of humanity. So I think that's a very, very clever cover to have on here. And it's beautiful, beautiful coloring, and it's certainly an eye-catching book. And this book does come with a dust cover, which I love. I love books with dust covers. But let me show you the book without it. So it is this lovely navy blue hardcover, and the side is this very clean writing in a bright white. It says Ethan Mollick Co-Intelligence. It's actually slightly raised. Now this book we did get used. We have this one secondhand. So it does have a little bit of wear, but honestly it's still in pretty good condition. Now this book, I believe, came out in 2024. And I feel like even just in the last year, quite a lot has been happening in the world of AI. But it seems like this is a really good starting place for anyone that seems to be struggling with their perspective or understanding of AI in today's world. So this is another one of those kind of like more serious books, I think. I think all of the books today were kind of more serious. I think Dune was the only like maybe slightly more fun one, but even Dune is like, it's like a serious sci-fi, so it's not like frivolous. But I think that this one is a little bit higher up on my TBR list, just because I know that it really made an impact on my husband, and I think that he would really like to be able to talk about it together. So those were all of the books that I wanted to show you today. And I also am still reading the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series, which is definitely a good reprieve from some of these more serious topics. But it's like very silly, so it's like a kind of, easy read, and I think it's good to have some things like that mixed in, at least for me. But I interested in some of these books. Kind of lots of like big societal statements, I think, in this video. Didn't necessarily plan for that, but it's just, maybe we're just kind of in that mood these last few months. Who knows? I hope that you enjoyed listening to me talk a little bit about these books. I'd love to hear maybe any recommendations that you have, or books that you've recently read that you've really enjoyed, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, societal statement, or something silly. I'm happy to hear all of your suggestions. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a